We are in that era of the Indian luxury car market where long wheelbase cars could become as common as smartphones. And here is Mercedes-Benz flexing its Germanic muscles with the new E-Class. Like the outgoing W213, the new W214 long wheelbase is again exclusive to India in its right-hand drive avatar. It's here to remind you of two things. One, it kick-started the long wheelbase trend. And two, in this space, size does matter, especially when you're going to be chauffeured around. Even if you were to squint, you will not mistake this to be its regal cousin, the S-Class, because you see there's this nice kink in the headlights, which also makes sure that the E-Class looks nothing like the rest of its stablemates. Then you have the longer wheelbase, 15 millimeters longer now for a total of 3094. Still not as long as the standard wheelbase of the S-Class, but longer than the outgoing car. Then you also get these flush door handles. These, along with this quarter glass, which unlike the global E-Class where it sits on the door, here it sits on the bodywork. So all of this comes together to make the new E-Class feel like a younger S-Class than a grown-up C. It looks every bit a stately limo, and despite rolling on 18-inch wheels, its proportions somehow still appear graceful. You also get the three-pointed stars in the grille, which is okay, but I think they've gotten a bit too carried away with it. Those stars have even popped up in the taillights. I mean, what's the need for that? It's a bit too shouty. What's next? Put these three-pointed stars on the tires as well? Because after all, the market wants more bling. But still, the E-Class continues in the tradition of brewing an understated elegance. A kind of quiet confidence that whispers, "I have arrived," without needing to shout it. It appears even more elegant and poised in the lighter colors. And for those looking at the 200 badge on the boot, don't be fooled into thinking you're driving the entry-level afterthought. The E200 zips along quite happily, feeling sprightly rather than sluggish, and even the exhaust note piped through the speakers adds a touch of sportiness. Of course, that engine may not have the brawn of its bigger siblings, but it won't leave you bored either. And that exhaust note being amplified through the speakers, I think it's a nice touch considering how silent this cabin can get. Oh, and speaking of the cabin, the ambient lighting sort of creates a lasso around all the seats. It goes from behind the rear seats as well, and that makes for a very nice lounge-like experience. But as you would expect with the E-long wheelbase, the real party piece is of course the rear seats. So you can also extend the under-thigh support by about 40 millimeters, which is a good touch. You can also recline the seats. Of course, it's not the first-class seating like you experience with the S-Class or even the EQS for that matter. But then again, this is a proper business class vibe that Mercedes-Benz is going with. Honestly, the only thing missing is the in-flight meal. But there's also no 3-pin plug to charge your old school gadgets. But for all your newfangled tech, there are enough USB-C ports in here. There's a wireless charger. So all your new age phablets, laptops, they should be fine. Mercedes has thrown in an air purification package too, which is practically a necessity in India's urban jungles. At the front, the 3-screen infotainment setup feels like it has been pulled straight from the S-Class. And that's not a bad thing. We are in an age where we love screens, so this kind of a setup definitely works. But let's be honest here. This car is for those who are going to be chauffeur-driven, those who are going to be in the back seat more often, not for those who are going to fiddle with tech in the front. So from that perspective, if I was spending that kind of money, I would have liked more screens at the back, which at the moment there are none. But in case you are the social media type who insists on documenting every moment, Mercedes-Benz has thoughtfully added a selfie camera to the dashboard. Not kidding. Because what's a luxury saloon without some Instagram-worthy selfies, right? But come on, again, this is for those who are going to be chauffeur-driven. So I would rather have that camera in the back for those Zoom, Teams, WebEx meetings, etc. That would make more sense. So depending on what is funding your automobiles, you could use the E-Class as a business saloon or a mobile content studio. Being a Mercedes-Benz, you can rest assured that the car doesn't skimp on safety. Every nook and corner of this cabin is protected with airbags. They've also done a little bit of tinkering. Like for example, if I were to go into assistance, you will see that the active brake assist is now turned off by default. We have complained about this in the past where it was on by default, and in our driving conditions that can actually get unnerving and can actually lead to an accident because the vehicle would automatically brake sometimes and catch the other motorists off guard. So that is now taken care of. It is off by default, and if you need it, you can turn it back on.
The ride quality is quintessential E-Class, silky smooth and utterly serene. The high-profile tires help too, softening out the bumps and the potholes with aplomb.
First thing that you're going to notice, whether you're in the front seat or the rear, is the ride quality. I'm driving on some poor road conditions right now, and I am completely blown away by the kind of ride that it has. Why am I so excited? It's a Mercedes-Benz, right? It's supposed to feel cushy, but this is the E200, so no adaptive dampers or any that kind of trickery in here. But that setup is so well engineered, especially for our road conditions. It's just perfect. I simply love it. What does leave me a bit wanting are the brakes. They've got a very soft bite to them, a very soft feel to them. Even in the sport mode, the bite just leaves me wanting. I think that should have been fixed, especially in the sport mode. It could have been a little bit more bitey. That's the only grudge I have from them. Otherwise, they're pretty confidence inspiring. What is a big revelation is the steering. If I were to blindfold you, or if I were to just hide the logo on the steering, you will not believe it's a Mercedes-Benz. And I say it in a good way because we've experienced this in the past where some of the older steering systems from Mercedes-Benz, they felt a bit too artificial, a bit too laid back, a little lazy. This one just feels on point. I know it's a business sedan and not a sports sedan, but I just love the steering as well. The steering and the suspension also help mask the enormous length of this car, and not just winding roads. Even in the congested cities like Mumbai, Pune, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, that length never becomes unnerving. Another impressive bit is the ground clearance. Now on our usual driving road, we have these few tall speed humps. I'm approaching one right now, where with the S-Class, with the older E-Class, we've had these butt-clenching moments. We've had to go maybe cross like that to make sure that the underbody doesn't scrape. But here, with the E-Class, I can simply approach them, no problem at all. It just takes on all of this quite nicely. So yes, it's not an SUV. It does have its restrictions because it's a saloon, but it is made for India. It handles all of this quite well. Other made for India bits also include a really robust warranty package, service packages, and of course, a very good assured buyback or residual value for the E-Class. I mean, come on, this is the E-Class. It is one of the best sellers for Mercedes-Benz India. So even if you don't go back to them, you're always going to get a really strong resale value. But when the company supports it, when the car maker supports it, that's additional peace of mind. Now, just a few things that I'll wish for to complete that in-cabin experience for the E-Class is a slightly more silent air conditioning experience, better air conditioning experience in terms of ventilated seats, at least for the rear seat occupants, if not for the front. And the last bit that I would want is those screens at the back that I spoke of. I think that would just complete the package. But as far as the powertrain responses go, as far as the powertrain performance goes, as far as the performance of the suspension goes, even without the adaptive dampers, I am very, very impressed. This is simply amazing.
In the end, the E200 manages to blend comfort with a surprising amount of agility. And it won't be any different for the other variants. It's not built to win drag races, but it will leave you feeling rather content, whether you are lounging in the back or making a quick dash through the city traffic. But if the idea of participating in drag races does appeal to you, there is a E-Class 450 too, which replaces the traditional E350 that I made references to earlier in this review. And with its 375 horses and the grip from the 4MATIC all-wheel drive, it can even give the E53 a run for its money, methinks, when it comes to balancing power and practicality. But that's a story for another day.
So as always, the E-Class remains an overachiever no matter which variant to choose. It's a great blend of comfort, styling, space, and of course powertrain. I think it all comes together quite nicely. There's also enough tech in here to put a tech startup to shame. So whether you are spending time in the rear seat or in the front, there's enough that the E-Class has to keep you entertained.
It's not as shouty as its AMG cousins, but for a business sedan, that's exactly what you want. If you are after a car that lets you stretch out in style while your driver handles the boring bits, this would be it. And with a starting price of under a crore for all the variants, it's yet again a bestseller in the making and a nightmare for the competition that wants to follow the long wheelbase trend.